Today, my natural science learners, I hope you are keeping fantastic and that you are keeping safe in these difficult times. Now, I hope you are ready today to learn something new. So let's get ready for today's lesson. I hope you enjoy. Good morning, grade 6 learners. Today is Wednesday, the 16th of September, and we are on lesson 26, fossil fuels and electricity. Now, before we get started, let's remember to read through our instructions in order for us to know what is required for us to do today in today's lesson. So, number 1, please remember your date and your heading. I'd please also like to ask you to make sure you write neatly and clearly, and of course, use lots of color. I'd also please like to ask you to make sure all the information in this PDF is in your book by the end of today's lesson, whether you take it from the academic pack or if you print it out yourself, or remember you can write out the notes from this PowerPoint presentation. But please make sure that you've got some notes written down about fossil fuels and electricity, and make sure that you complete the required activities in this lesson. Remember, if you have not completed them, there will be homework. Once again, remember to rule off your work, and I hope that you have a wonderful lesson today. How fossil fuels are formed. So we are going to start the topic fossil fuels and electricity, and we need to have a look at how fossil fuels are formed. So fuels are substances which release heat energy when they are burned, and you will learn about different types of heat energy in grade 7. Fossil fuels come from living things that died millions of years ago. So it's important for you to understand what a fossil fuel is and to be able to give it a definition or be able to explain it in your own words. These living things were animals, forests, and wetlands. So remember, fossil fuels come from living things that died millions of years ago. And fuels are substances which release heat energy when they are burned. Now, the living things received their energy from the sun. This living matter died and was squashed or compressed by layers of mud and sand. These layers became heavy. After millions of years of being squished, this living matter changed into substances like coal, oil, and natural gases. Now remember, when we think of coal, oil, and natural gases, we have to think of these resources as non-renewable resources. Now you will learn later on what non-renewable and renewable is. Some fossil fuels like coal can be found near the Earth's surface. Most fossil fuels are found deep under the earth. So now that you have a little bit of an understanding how fossil fuels are formed, later on in this video you will see 4 different pictures of how fossil fuels are formed and how they look in the different layers. So when we have a deeper look at fossil fuels, we need to remember that they millions of years ago in wetlands and forest areas, huge ferns and plants grew. Now these huge ferns and plants got their energy from the sun. Remember, there's a cycle, there's a way of how things got their energy, and most of it comes from the sun. There was a transfer of heat from the sun to different things in the world that we live in the environment that we live in. And remember, we need the sun in order for certain systems to take place in natural science. Now, when these plants died, they formed layers of rotting material. So we could say they decomposed. These layers were squashed and compressed by mud and water. As more mud and water piled on top of these layers, they were further compressed. The heat inside the earth helped to slowly turn these layers of dead plants into black coal. Now in the next slide you can have a look at how it first started off in picture number 1, where the plants and the ferns and the different wetlands and forest areas got their energy from the sun. Then we move into picture number 2, where we get the different layers of dirt and dead plants. Now remember, these are our natural resources that we lost over time because they died, and it takes millions, if not thousands of years for fossil fuels to develop. Then we move to number 3, and there we will see under the ocean there is the different phases and the different layers, and then we get the lignite. And in number 4, eventually once you look at the different layers, after layer, and this is after millions of years of these dead plants and living matter that died, lies under there and coal is formed. Now, when we have a look at fossil fuels, we need to understand that they are a non-renewable resource. So remember, fossil fuels are anything like coal, oil, and gas. Now, if we think of fossil fuels as a non-renewable resource, we need to think of what is a non-renewable resource. So, non-renewable resources are resources such as coal that cannot be replaced when they are used up. So, non-renewable means that they cannot be replaced when they are used up. That means when they are gone, they are finished. Once all our non-renewable resources are depleted, we cannot just create more in an instance. So non-renewable resources are things like coal, oil, and natural gases, and they cannot be replaced once they are used up. For thousands of years, people have used natural resources from the earth. Some of our natural resources that we use will not last forever. This is because they have taken millions of years to form and need very specific conditions to form, like pressure and heat. Now, just take a little bit of a moment to think, if this is what non-renewable resources are, what do you think renewable resources are? Non-renewable resources are things from our planet that will eventually run out. Some examples are coal, oil, and natural gases. So grade 6s, if you understand that non-renewable resources are things that will eventually run out, there are resources that cannot be replaced when they are used up, then we need to think of renewable resources as resources that can be replaced and won't ever be depleted. Now that you understand a little bit better what a non-renewable resource is and some examples, let's continue. Now we'll have a deeper look at the different types of non-renewable resources, oil and natural gases. Now remember, if we think of oil, it is thick and black liquid used to make petrol. We could call it crude oil. Petrol is burned in cars, trucks, and buses. Gas is colorless and odorless. It has no smell. A chemical is added to natural gas to make it smell. This is for safety reasons. Gas is used in homes for cooking and heating. Isn't it interesting that we can use our natural resources, our non-renewable resources, in our environment that we live in on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes we don't even know about it. Now, where are they found? Oil and natural gases can be found buried deep under the ocean's floor. Huge structures called oil rigs are used to drill for oil and gases. Oil and natural gases can also be found deep underground. A hole is sunk with a big drill to reach the oil and gases. These fossil fuels are then brought to the surface that we can use in our daily lives. Now, this is how you found oil and natural gases. And remember, you also know what a fossil fuel is. I would like you to take a moment to make sure you understand exactly what a non-renewable resource is, and make sure that you understand or know how to explain it and what different types of non-renewable resources we get. Uses of oil and natural gases. Oil is the most used energy fuel in the world. Oil is used to make petrol. Most cars, trucks, tractors use petrol as a fuel. These vehicles are used to get goods to shops and to transfer people around from one place to another. Oil is also used for heating. Plastic is made from oil. Plastic is used to make many products for shopping bags or toys. Now remember, when we think of plastic, we can think of so many different things that are made out of plastic. Wow, did you know that plastic is made from oil? I want you to take a moment and just think of everything that you can think of that is made out of plastic. Use of oil and natural gases. Natural gas is used in many homes for heating and cooking. Gas is used in factories for energy. Glass and steel factories use gas for energy. Natural gas is the cleanest of the fossil fuels. Oil and natural gases are transported in pipelines, trucks, and tankers. Now, grade sixes, let's have a deeper look into what coal is and how it was formed. Coal was formed from the remains of trees, ferns, and plants that lived 300 to 400 million years ago. These plants got their energy from the sun, as you learned earlier in this lesson. Now, over time, the layers of dead plants were covered with the layers of mud and water. Now, these layers were squished down on the dead plants. The weight of these layers and the heat turned the plants into coal that we use today. Now, remember, South Africa is extremely rich in coal, and we rely on coal in order to generate electricity. This energy was trapped by the layers of mud and water over millions of years ago. These dead plants became coal. Now, in the next slide, you will see a picture of exactly how the layers became or formed over the different times. So in this slide, I'd like you to just have a look at how coal was formed and look at the different layers in the picture. Now, grade sixes, let's have a look at how power stations use coal to make electricity. Many power stations use coal to generate and make electricity. Coal is used as an input energy. The coal is used to heat water. The water turns into steam. The steam turns the blades of the turbines, and then what ends up happening is the turbines are linked to a huge generator. Now, a big magnet turns inside a generator. This produces the electricity. The electricity is transported along the transmission lines to our homes, and electricity is the output energy of the power station. Now that you understand how a power station uses coal to make electricity, I want you to pay attention to the next slide. So, grade sixes, in this slide you will see exactly how electricity is produced in coal burning power stations. I'd like you to take a moment to look at this figure 3. You can find it in your textbook or you can look at it in this slide. Exactly from number 1 to 8, this is how electricity is generated in a power station. Now, if we look at number 1, coal is transported from a storage area to a boiler. Number 2, coal burns and heats the water in the boiler. 3, the hot water turns into steam. 4, the steam is used to turn a turbine, and a turbine is like a huge wheel with blades. 5, the moving turbine turns a generator. A generator is a machine that changes the energy of the moving turbine into electrical energy. Then we need to look at number 6, the electricity. So when we look at number 6, the electricity travels along the power lines over long distances. And remember, these are power lines or transmission lines, and we call them pylons. Number 7, the electricity carried by power lines has a lot of energy and is dangerous. Transformers at substations reduce the amount of energy carried by electricity before it enters our homes. And then number 8, people use electricity when they switch on their lights or use electrical appliances. Now, grade sixes, I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson on fossil fuels and electricity. I hope you have a better understanding of what fossil fuels are and exactly what is meant by non-renewable resources. And I hope that you know how to explain what a non-renewable resource is and to give some examples. I hope you have a better understanding of how electricity is generated. Now pay attention. I'd please like to ask you to make sure you have these notes in your workbook, and please make sure to complete activity 2 on page 149 in your workbook. Now remember, if you do not have this textbook with you at home, I have uploaded a scanned version onto Google Classroom that you are more than welcome to use. I've also included activity 2 in this video, in the last slide of the video. I hope you had a wonderful lesson, and I'll make sure to complete all your work and have a wonderful day further.